The sand beneath your feet hides entire worlds. We are about to explore 30 submerged ruins, underwater time capsules that hold the secrets of ancient coastlines and lost cities. By the end, you will possess a new understanding of how our planet's dramatic changes have rewritten human history. How did a legendary pirate city vanish in minutes, and what mysterious pyramid lies hidden off the coast of India? These silent stones challenge everything we think we know about the past. What forgotten story beneath the waves do you find most compelling? That slow, silent surrender is the ocean's greatest illusion. We picture ancient cities vanishing in sudden, catastrophic waves, but the truth is often far more patient and profound. To truly understand the stories these sunken stones tell, we must first understand the forces that placed them there. This is not just about water covering land. It is about our planet itself breathing, shifting, and reshaping the very stage upon which human history has played out. The primary driver is a story of ice and time. When the last great ice age ended around 12,000 years ago, colossal glaciers that once blanketed continents began to melt. All that meltwater had to go somewhere, and it flowed into the world's oceans, causing sea levels to rise by over 120 meters. This was not a flood, but a slow, inexorable creep that drowned entire coastal plains over. Vast landscapes that early humans once called home, rich with resources and potential settlements, were gradually claimed by the rising tide. This process, known as eustatic sea level change, but the story gets more complex because the land itself is not a passive platform. It moves. In regions like the Mediterranean or the Pacific Ring of Fire, the immense geological forces of plate tectonics cause something called subsidence. Here, entire sections of the Earth's crust can slowly sink, or in rare, violent moments, drop suddenly during an earthquake. This tectonic subsidence means a coastal city can find itself sinking, while the sea is also rising, a double sentence that accelerates its journey beneath the waves. Marine geologists like Dr. Robert, who discovered the wreck of the Titanic, often remind us that the ocean floor is the world's greatest museum. Its exhibits are not arranged by curators, but by these immense planetary processes. There is also isostatic adjustment, a fascinating rebound effect. Imagine pressing your finger into a soft pillow, then lifting it. The dent slowly rises back up. During the Ice Age, the tremendous weight of ice sheets pressed down on continents like Northern Europe and North America. When the ice melted, that weight was lifted, and the land began to slowly rebound upward. But here is the twist: the areas around the edges, freed from the ice's burden, sometimes tilted downward. This means in some regions, the relative sea level rise was even more dramatic, as the land itself was sinking while the water climbed. So when we look at a ruin like the ancient village of Yam off the coast of Israel, we are not looking at a city that was built at the bottom of the sea. We are seeing a thriving Neolithic community that was constructed on dry land, near a spring, only to be gradually enveloped as the Mediterranean Sea claimed the continental shelf it sat upon. The water did not crash in. It seeped in, season after season, generation after generation, until one day the last house was abandoned to the waves. This foundational knowledge transforms a list of locations into a meaningful map. It answers the why, allowing us to truly appreciate the where. With the stage set by these powerful, patient forces of nature, our global tour can begin. We start in a place where myth and geology collide with stunning force. The ancient texts speak of a city so magnificent it seemed forged from divine will itself. This is the legendary kingdom of Lord Krishna, described in the Mahabharata and Puranas as a fortress of gold and jewels, a celestial capital that vanished into the ocean upon his passing. For centuries, these accounts were considered beautiful mythology, poetic metaphors for a spiritual realm. Then, off the modern coast of Gujarat, the sea began to give up its secrets. Marine archaeologists, led by institutions like India's National Institute of Oceanography, discovered something astonishing beneath the waves. Scattered across the seabed lay the bones of a lost world, massive stone blocks forming walls and geometric structures, ancient anchors carved from stone, and a wealth of pottery and artifacts. One of the most compelling finds is what appears to be a large, submerged jetty, a clear suggestion of a major port facility designed to handle significant maritime traffic. These are not random stones. They are the footprints of a sophisticated coastal city that thrived thousands of years ago. The discovery ignites a profound and ongoing debate. Does this physical validate the epic legends literally, proving the city of Krishna was a real historical place? Or does it represent a later, powerful harbor city, whose memory and grandeur became woven over generations into the older spiritual narratives? This is where underwater archaeology transcends simple discovery, sits at a powerful intersection, a point where faith, folklore, and physical evidence converge. The ruins do not just tell us about stone and sea level, they breathe tangible life into ancient stories, allowing us to touch a past we once could only read about. They offer silent, solid testimony that the coastline here was once dramatically different, that what is now seabed was once a bustling, vibrant home. Whether one sees divine history or human achievement in these stones, their message is undeniable. Our world has changed in ways that swallowed entire chapters of our shared human story. This pattern of a thriving port meeting a sudden end is not unique to legend. For our next stop, we travel to the Mediterranean, to a city whose fate was sealed not by a slow rise, but by a single catastrophic night. While story is wrapped in epic legend, the waters of Greece hold a ruin stripped of all myth, a city so ancient and perfectly preserved it feels like a ghost frozen in time. This is lying in the startlingly clear shallows off the southern coast of Laconia. Here, you can literally swim through history. The experience is profoundly eerie, gliding over a complete urban grid laid out more than 5,000 years ago, during the height of the Bronze Age. Your shadow passes over the low stone walls of homes, the outlines of courtyards where families gathered, and even ceremonial sites, all resting silently on the seabed as if waiting for their inhabitants to return. Dr. Henderson, who led the groundbreaking digital survey of the site, called it a unique snapshot of Bronze Age life. And that is exactly what it is, a moment captured not by volcanic ash like Pompeii, but by the sea's gentle, relentless embrace. The city's submergence was likely a 1-2 punch, the gradual rise of Mediterranean waters combined with local seismic activity that caused the land to sink. This combination did not destroy, it preserved it. The very forces that claimed it also protected it from later rebuilding, from plowing, from modern construction. It is a time capsule sealed in. The finds here are quietly revolutionary. Archaeologists have mapped pottery from across the Aegean, obsidian tools that trace ancient trade routes, and a city layout of remarkable sophistication. We see streets laid out in a grid, distinct residential and ceremonial quarters, and evidence of a complex water management system. This was not a simple village. It was a planned, thriving port city with a deep understanding of commerce and community, existing a full 1,000 years before the glory of classical Athens. Serves as a pristine underwater laboratory. It offers us unparalleled insights into the daily rhythms of early maritime life, from how goods moved across the sea to how people organized their homes and honored their past. It strips away the layers of later history to show us the foundational blueprint of Aegean civilization. This silent, sunken grid challenges our timeline, proving that urban complexity on the European coast is far older than we once believed. And while offers a silent, static blueprint of a lost society, our next destination reveals a city that met a far more violent and definitive end. A place where the line between history and cautionary tale vanishes beneath the waves. Its streets were paved with plundered Spanish gold, and its taverns echoed with the boasts of the most notorious pirates to ever sail the Caribbean. Port Royal, Jamaica, was not merely a town, it was a symbol of lawless ambition, a place where fortunes were made and lives were squandered in a haze of rum and revelry. Its citizens, a mix of privateers, merchants, and rogues, called it the richest city on earth. And on the morning of June 7, 1692, the earth itself answered back. It began with a low rumble, a deep groan from the very foundations of the sandy spit upon which the city was built. In a matter of minutes, the ground swallowing buildings whole. A massive tsunami surged through the devastated streets, dragging what remained into the churning sea. 2/3 of the city simply vanished, claimed by the harbor in a single, catastrophic event. For the survivors and the world watching, it was a stark, moralistic lesson, an act of divine judgment upon a den of iniquity. But for modern archaeology, the disaster created something extraordinary, a perfectly preserved time capsule. The violent collapse and rapid burial in anoxic mud, devoid of oxygen, halted decay in its tracks. This is not a city that slowly faded beneath rising seas. It is a community flash frozen at 11:43 in the morning. Underwater archaeologists, working in the challenging visibility of Kingston Harbor, have recovered a stunningly intimate portrait of 17th century colonial life. They find not just treasure, but the mundane objects of daily existence. A pewter plate still set for a meal that was never eaten, clay pipes dropped in an instant, delicate glassware. And the very bricks and timbers of homes and shops. Each artifact is a silent witness, pulling us past the legend of piracy to the reality of a bustling, complex port city. We see the economic stratification, from the crude utensils of a common sailor to the refined possessions of a wealthy merchant. The site's significance is this incredible snapshot quality. It offers a precise, date-stamped cross-section of the material world at the height of the Caribbean's colonial era, a level of detail that slowly submerged ruins can rarely provide. Port Royal teaches a dual lesson, that nature's most destructive forces can inadvertently become history's most meticulous curators, and that the most vivid stories are often told not by grand monuments, but by the ordinary objects left behind in a moment of unimaginable change. This theme of sudden, transformative loss connects two worlds, from a pirate haven in the New World to a sacred landscape in the Old, where an entire kingdom slipped silently beneath a very different sea. The clear waters of the Caribbean give way to the deep, mysterious currents of the Pacific. Off the westernmost tip of Japan, near the remote island of, lies a discovery that defies easy explanation and has ignited a debate that cuts to the very heart of how we interpret the past. Resting about 25 meters below the surface is the monument, a colossal, terrace structure that looks for all the world like a sunken step pyramid. Its sheer walls drop at sharp, 90-degree angles. Vast, flat platforms form what seem to be wide plazas or terraces. There are features that resemble staircases, archways, and even a monolithic slab some call the turtle. To the untrained eye, it appears as the unmistakable architecture of a lost civilization, a silent, submerged city waiting to tell its story. This is precisely the argument made by proponents like marine geologists, who have studied the site for decades. He points to the prevalence of clean, right-angled corners, what he interprets as tool marks on the stone, and specific formations like twin pillars that seem too symmetrical to be random. For him, and for many who see the images, is a monumental relic of a prehistoric culture, perhaps even a Japanese Atlantis that sank during a cataclysmic seismic event thousands of years ago. The emotional pull of this idea is powerful. It suggests a hidden chapter of human history, a sophisticated society whose achievements were erased by the sea. Yet the scientific consensus offers a different, though no less awe-inspiring, narrative. Mainstream geologists argue that the monument is a masterpiece of nature, not of humankind. They explain that the rock itself is a sedimentary sandstone, prone to fracturing along natural horizontal and vertical planes as tectonic forces uplift the seabed. The relentless sculpting power of ocean currents can then erode these fractures, creating and accentuating the sharp edges, flat surfaces, and stepped appearances. What looks like a carved staircase could be a series of these natural shelf collapses. The iconic turtle could be a block isolated by this same process. The debate itself is the site's true power. It forces us to confront our own perceptions and the human tendency to see familiar patterns, especially faces and structures, in natural forms, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. It highlights the breathtaking artistry of planetary forces, where Earth movements and water can create forms that rival our own most ambitious monuments. Whether one sees the hand of an ancient builder or the patient genius of geology, the monument stands as a profound mystery. It challenges us to question, to wonder, and to remember that sometimes the most incredible ruins are not proof of lost civilizations, but monuments to the incredible shaping power of the world itself. This tension between what is built and what is born of the earth guides us to another sunken wonder, where the human hand is undeniable, and its purpose has sparked centuries of speculation. The debate between nature's artistry and human craftsmanship finds no clearer resolution than in the silt of the Egyptian coast. Here, the ruins are unequivocally man-made, and their story is one of legendary trade, not geological mystery. For centuries, the cities of and Canopus were little more than names in ancient texts, celebrated ports of entry where Greek merchants first set foot on Egyptian soil to trade under the gaze of the pharaohs. Historians knew they must have existed somewhere near the mouth of the Nile, but the land had swallowed them whole. Then, in the late 1990s, in the murky waters of a Baiae marine archaeologist and his team made a discovery that would rewrite history. Their first major clue was not a small artifact, but a monumental one, the colossal red granite statue of the god Hapi, deity of the Nile's annual flood. Being carefully lifted from its muddy tomb after more than a millennium in darkness, this was just the beginning. What systematic surveys revealed was nothing short of an underwater metropolis. They mapped vast temple complexes dedicated to the supreme god Amun, the foundations of grand harbors, and a stunning collection of more than 60 ancient shipwrecks, a ghost fleet resting in the silty seabed. The most telling finds, however, were the inscriptions. A massive black granite slab, or stele, was discovered, bearing the same decree as the famous stone, providing a direct link between these sunken cities and the highest powers of ancient Egypt. Gold coins, delicate jewelry, and ritual offerings painted a picture of immense wealth and spiritual devotion. These were not outposts, they were the vibrant, critical gateways where two great civilizations met, a melting pot of Egyptian and Greek culture, religion, and commerce. So what happened to such powerful hubs? Experts point to a perfect storm of environmental factors. The cities were built on the unstable, waterlogged clay of the Nile Delta. The weight of their massive stone buildings, combined with the constant settling of the delta soil and a gradual rise in sea level, caused the ground to slowly liquefy and sink. A major seismic event, perhaps even a tsunami triggered by an earthquake, may have delivered the final, catastrophic blow, causing large sections to drop into the sea suddenly. The water rushed in, and the thick, preserving silt quickly buried the cities, locking them in a state of remarkable preservation. The legacy of and Canopus is profound. They force us to redraw the map of ancient Mediterranean trade, proving these ports were the mandatory funnels through which all Greek trade with Egypt flowed before the rise of Alexandria. They reveal the intricate cultural fusion that happened at these coastal crossroads, where Egyptian gods were alongside Greek ones. Their rediscovery is a powerful reminder that even the most celebrated chapters of history can have missing pages, pages that sometimes lie waiting, perfectly preserved, just beneath the gentle lap of the waves. This theme of cultural crossroads swallowed by the sea stretches far beyond the Mediterranean, to a place where an entire continent's earliest human stories may be hidden in the shallow waters off its coast. The transition from bustling ports to a quiet farming village is a journey back to the very roots of settled human life. Before empires and legends, there were the first communities who chose to stay in one place, to cultivate the land and build a future from stone and soil. One of the most complete and haunting portraits of this profound shift lies not in a dusty excavation trench, but beneath the gentle waves off the coast of Israel. This is Yam, a Neolithic village that has rested on the for nearly 9,000 years. The scene is remarkably preserved, a ghostly snapshot of a moment in time so distant it predates the pyramids of Egypt. Baiae. You can still see the foundations of simple stone houses, arranged in a clear plan. A central, stone-lined well, the oldest known of its kind in the world, speaks to a deep understanding of engineering and communal resource management. This was not a temporary camp. It was a permanent home, evidence of humanity's monumental turn from nomadic hunting and gathering to the settled rhythms of agriculture and animal husbandry. The finds here are intimate, connecting us directly to these ancient individuals. Archaeologists have uncovered stone tools for grinding grain, the bones of domesticated animals, and evidence of a diet rich in fish, showing a life still closely tied to the sea that would one day claim them. Perhaps the most poignant discoveries, however, are the resting places of the villagers themselves. Analysis of these remains has provided some of the earliest known evidence of health challenges like tuberculosis, offering a silent testament to the new vulnerabilities that came with dense, settled community life. Nearby, a semicircle of massive stones, some with cup marks carved into their surfaces, suggests a space for gathering or ceremony, a glimpse into the spiritual world of these early farmers. The story of Yam's End is a testament to the slow, inexorable forces we began with. This village was not destroyed by war or catastrophe. It was gradually, patiently abandoned as the Mediterranean Sea, rising in the wake of the last ice age, crept inland. The well that sustained life eventually began to fill with. The fertile coastal plain they farmed slowly submerged. Generation by generation, the community was forced to retreat, leaving their homes to the advancing tide. This makes Yam uniquely powerful. It is not a ruin of sudden disaster, but of a slow, inevitable change that its inhabitants could witness but not stop. It represents one of humanity's first great adaptations to a changing climate, a reluctant migration written in stone on the. The village offers a silent, profound dialogue between human innovation and planetary transformation, showing us that the challenge of rising seas is not a new story, but a very ancient one. Written in the foundations of our first homes. The quiet surrender of a Neolithic village stands in stark contrast to a discovery that roared onto the world stage with claims that could shatter our understanding of ancient history. In the early 2000s, sonar surveys in India's Gulf of, formerly known as, revealed something extraordinary on the murky seabed. The images appeared to show vast, geometric patterns, including what looked like the outlines of massive, stepped structures and long, straight formations resembling city walls, all submerged under nearly 40 meters of water. The initial announcement was explosive, suggesting the discovery of a lost city, complete with sunken pyramids, dating back a staggering 9,500 years. This date, based on reported wood fragments recovered from the site, was the catalyst for the controversy. If accurate, it would place this civilization thousands of years before the great Indus Valley cities of Harappa, and even predate the earliest known urban centers of Mesopotamia. The implication was monumental: a sophisticated, unknown culture thriving on the Indian subcontinent at the very dawn of the Holocene epoch, a civilization erased by rising post-Ice Age seas. The scientific community, however, responded with intense scrutiny and profound skepticism. Mainstream marine geologists and archaeologists pointed out significant challenges. The sonar images, they argued, were open to interpretation. The geometric shapes could be natural formations resulting from ancient river channels, sedimentation patterns, or even remnants of a submerged mangrove forest. The retrieval of the artifacts, including those dated wood fragments, was questioned regarding their precise context, whether they came directly from the structural features or simply from the general seabed, which could contain material washed in from elsewhere over. Critics emphasized that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the evidence presented thus far was seen as ambiguous and lacking the clear, stratified context that terrestrial archaeology relies upon. This debate is not a dismissal of the find's potential, but a vital demonstration of the scientific process itself. Underwater archaeology at such depths and in such challenging conditions is a meticulous, costly endeavor. It requires more than suggestive sonar maps. It demands physical verification through systematic excavation, precise dating of materials in, and the unmistakable identification of human craftsmanship. Like tool marks or organized construction, the Gulf of Controversy highlights the fine line every researcher walks between exciting possibility and rigorous proof. It underscores the responsibility that comes with a discovery that could rewrite textbooks. Whether these shapes are the echoes of a lost world or the fascinating artistry of natural geology, the site serves a crucial purpose. It fuels our imagination while reminding us that the deepest mysteries of the past demand our most disciplined and patient inquiry. The sea guards its secrets closely, and sometimes the most profound revelation is not a definitive answer, but a question that pushes the entire field to look deeper and question harder. The line between a natural disaster and a deliberate decision is sometimes heartbreakingly thin. While ancient cities fell to rising seas or shifting earth, the waters of the Lawrence River hold a different kind of secret, one born not of geological fate, but of 20th century ambition. To power the modern world and open a vital shipping corridor, a choice was made in the 1950s. Entire communities along the river's edge in Ontario, Canada, were sacrificed to the creation of the massive Lawrence Seaway. Towns with names like Maple Grove and were systematically evacuated. Homes were demolished, cemeteries were carefully relocated, and then the floodgates were opened. The water rose, not over centuries, but in a planned, controlled surge, swallowing streets, schools, and farms to create the Seaway's vast reservoirs. Today, in the clear, cold waters of the Seaway, a ghostly modern archaeology is visible. When conditions are right, you can peer down and see the skeletal remains of a recent past, the concrete foundations of a farmhouse, the crumbling stone steps of a general store that once anchored a community. The straight lines of old roadways now leading divers on a surreal tour. This is an underwater museum of mid-20th century life, preserved by deliberate inundation. Historians and the few remaining former residents speak of this not with the awe of ancient mystery, but with a quiet, complex nostalgia. They discuss the social cost of monumental progress, the profound disruption of rooted lives, and the bittersweet legacy of creating a future by consciously erasing a present. The lost villages of the Lawrence stand as a powerful, poignant counterpoint. They remind us that submergence is not always an act of nature or time. Sometimes it is a conscious sacrifice, a decision made in the name of collective advancement. These ruins, so young and so personal, challenge us to ponder what we choose to preserve and what we agree to lose. They are a time capsule of a different order, preserving not the dawn of civilization, but the quiet end of a way of life, submerged by human hands for a world we now inhabit. This theme of human choice guiding a city's fate takes us to a place where the story is not of loss, but of astonishing, intentional preservation. While modern reservoirs can erase a way of life, the waters of Italy preserve a very different kind of sacrifice, one of pure pleasure. In the brilliant blue of the Bay of Naples, you can swim directly through the living room of a Roman emperor. This is the ancient world's most infamous and luxurious resort, a place where the elite of Rome came to indulge in every imaginable vice. The poet Seneca, with clear disapproval, wrote of its streets echoing with the sounds of revelry and ships crowding its shores, calling it a haunt of vice. Emperors like Caligula and Nero built sprawling, opulent villas here, drawn not just by the stunning seaside views, but by the region's unique geology. Sat atop a volcanic caldera, which gifted it with natural geothermal springs. The Romans ingeniously channeled these hot waters into elaborate bath complexes, creating a spa destination of unparalleled luxury. They built magnificent structures right at the water's edge, confident in their dominion over the landscape. But the very ground that provided their pleasure was slowly, imperceptibly, betraying them. The geological phenomenon at work is called a gradual rising and falling of the Earth's crust caused by the movement of magma and hydrothermal fluids deep below. In this case, a large section of coastline near began a slow subsidence, sinking at a rate of a few centimeters per year. Over centuries, this patient sinking allowed the Mediterranean to claim nearly half of the ancient city. The result is an archaeological wonder unlike any other. Today is a protected marine park, an underwater museum where snorkelers and divers glide over the remains of extraordinary wealth. You can follow a sunken Roman road, its paving stones still visible, leading to the submerged entrance of a villa. You can hover above intricate mosaic floors, their colorful tesserae depicting mythological scenes, now watched over by schools of curious fish. Statues that once adorned lavish gardens now stand silently on the seabed, draped in gentle marine growth. One of the most famous structures is the so-called Villa of the, with its grand, column-lined nymphaeum, a monumental fountain complex that would have been a centerpiece of entertainment and display. Marine archaeologists studying the site gain incredible insight into Roman engineering and leisure. They can see how buildings were constructed to harness the views and the thermal springs, and how the finest materials were imported for decoration. The slow, gentle nature of the subsidence meant there was no violent destruction. Items were not scattered in panic. Instead, the sea filled these spaces calmly, leaving a hauntingly intact portrait of opulence frozen in time. Story is a powerful lesson in geological irony. The same volcanic forces that created the luxurious hot springs also orchestrated the city's gradual descent into the sea. It transforms a tale of decadence into one of poetic preservation, where the Mediterranean itself became the curator for Rome's most extravagant playground. The cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea hold a different kind of treasure, one that time and the open ocean would normally destroy. Here, in the low salinity embrace of this inland sea, wood does not rot away. It waits. For thousands of years, it has rested in a state of near-perfect preservation, offering us a window into a world not of stone monuments, but of wood and fiber. Of the daily struggle and ingenuity of the very first people to walk these shores after the glaciers retreated. These are the submerged landscapes of the Baltic, where the past is preserved with a clarity that astonishes archaeologists. At sites like Vig in Denmark, researchers have discovered not just the vague outlines of camps, but the intimate artifacts of Mesolithic and Neolithic life, preserved as if they were lost only yesterday. The star finds are objects of stunning beauty and function, like intricately decorated wooden paddles. These are not crude tools, they are works of art, etched with elegant geometric patterns that transformed a simple means of propulsion into a statement of identity and craftsmanship. Alongside them, archaeologists have recovered finely woven fish traps, ingenious devices that reveal a deep, sophisticated understanding of local ecology and seasonal patterns. These are the technologies of survival, rendered in organic materials that simply do not survive on dry land. The preservation is so exceptional that scientists can study the tool marks left by flint knives on the wood, the wear patterns from hands that grip these paddles, and even the remains of the plant fibers used for cordage. This transforms our understanding from abstract to tangible. We are not just learning that these people were hunter-gatherers. We are seeing the very objects they held, the art they created, and the traps they set. We witness their adaptation to a rich coastal environment that provided fish, waterfowl, and other resources. The story of their end is the same slow, global process, but on a local stage. As the great ice sheets melted, the land here, once pressed down by their unimaginable weight, began to rebound. But the interplay of this glacial rebound and the rising sea level was complex, causing the Baltic basin to slowly fill and reshape its coastlines over. The very lagoons and inlets that provided such rich resources for these communities were gradually inundated. Their seasonal camps, their fishing grounds, and their carefully chosen activity areas were silently claimed by the rising water. This loss, however, granted us an incredible gift. Because these sites are not grand cities, they offer a different, profoundly human scale of insight. They show us adaptation in motion, how small, mobile groups lived in tune with a dynamic world. They reveal the displacement not of empires, but of families and bands, forced to continually move and adjust as their familiar landscape slowly vanished beneath the waves. The Baltic's cold, gentle waters did not just drown a coastline. They curated a museum of everyday life from a time when humanity was learning to master a world still emerging from the ice. The preservation of wood in the Baltic is a scientific marvel, but the world's highest navigable lake holds a mystery carved from stone. High in the Andes, at a breathtaking altitude of over 12,000 feet, Lake's deep blue waters conceal more than just the reflection of snow-capped peaks. Beneath its surface, along the lake's sloping shores, lie enigmatic structures that challenge our understanding of ancient Andean cultures. Divers and archaeologists braving the thin, cold air have mapped what appear to be ceremonial cairns, long stone walls, and the foundations of a large, terraced platform that some interpret as a sunken temple complex. The scale and deliberate arrangement of these stones strongly suggest a human hand, not a random geological process. The immediate question is, who built them? The most compelling link is to the culture, a powerful pre-Incan civilization whose influence once radiated across the region from its ceremonial capital on the lake's southern shore. These underwater features could represent an extension of sacred landscape, perhaps a ritual site intentionally constructed near the water's edge to honor deities of creation and fertility. Yet the structures might be even older, the work of a precursor culture whose name is lost to time. This physical evidence powerfully intersects with enduring local legend. For generations, Aymara people have spoken of a splendid city that was swallowed by the lake as a punishment for the arrogance of its inhabitants. The discovery of these man-made forms gives tangible weight to these oral histories, suggesting they may be metaphorical memories of a very real place that slipped beneath the waves. The work to understand these ruins is a feat of endurance. Archaeologists have led diving expeditions at this extreme altitude, where every movement requires immense effort and dive times are severely limited. Their findings are meticulous, mapping stone by stone to distinguish cultural remains from natural rock falls. The key to the mystery lies in the lake's own volatile history. Lake is not a static basin. Geological studies show its water level has fluctuated wildly driven by long-term climate cycles and the region's intense tectonic activity. During prolonged dry periods, the shoreline would have receded dramatically, exposing vast new tracts of land for settlement. Communities could have built structures in what were then fertile plains or ritual spaces near a smaller lake. When the climate shifted again, bringing centuries of heavier rainfall, the lake would have expanded, slowly and silently reclaiming that land and everything upon it. This inland submergence story is a crucial variation on our theme. It demonstrates that you do not need an ocean to lose a city. Dramatic environmental change in a lake locked high in the mountains can isolate or drown cultural sites just as effectively as the rising sea. The underwater cairns are a testament to this. They represent not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, profound transformation of a sacred geography, a conversation between human culture and a mountain lake that has breathed in and out for thousands of years. The stone cairns of lake remind us that entire worlds can vanish into, but the most profound loss of all lies beneath the cold waves of the North Sea. This is not a single city or village, but a ghost continent, a place called. For thousands of years, this was not sea at all, but a vast, inhabited plain, a bridge of rolling hills, forested valleys, and meandering rivers that connected the land we now call Britain to mainland Europe. Modern seismic mapping, a technology that uses sound waves to see through the seabed, has painted its portrait in stunning detail. We can now trace the ancient course of the River Thames, where it once flowed north to join other waterways in a great delta before emptying into a distant sea. We can see the outlines of vast lakes and the gentle slopes of hills that were once landmarks for a prehistoric world. This was not an empty wilderness, it was a thriving ecosystem and a homeland. Fishermen trawling the seabed, known as the Doggerbank, have for centuries hauled up surprising catches, not just fish, but the bones of mammoths, woolly rhinoceros, and other Ice Age giants. alongside finely crafted flint tools and weapons dropped by human hands. One of the most poignant finds is a fragment of a Neanderthal skull, a silent witness to the deep antiquity of this lost landscape. Paleogeographers, scientists who study ancient geography, pieced together the story of its end. As the last ice age waned, the great glaciers melted, and the sea began its long, slow rise. But was also sinking, its land compressed by the former weight of the ice to the north. Between about 18,000 and 5,500 years before the Common Era, this double assault of rising water and sinking land transformed the plain. The forests drowned, the rivers became estuaries, and the lakes merged with the encroaching ocean. What was once a continuous continent became first an archipelago of isolated islands, and then, finally, nothing but seabed. This was not a sudden event for its inhabitants, but a creeping, generational crisis. Communities that had hunted in those forests and fished in those rivers were forced into a relentless retreat, their entire world slowly shrinking map by map, generation by generation. This mass migration reshaped the human geography of Europe, pushing populations into the lands that would become Britain, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Story is the ultimate scale of loss. It is not about the drowning of buildings, but of an entire living world, a complete chapter of human prehistory now resting beneath the shipping lanes and wind farms of the modern North Sea. It represents perhaps the most significant geographical change to ever affect human settlement in this part of the world. A reminder that the coastlines we take for granted are only a temporary snapshot in the long, breathing history of our planet. The ghost continent represents a loss of almost unimaginable scale, but sometimes the sea gives back a piece of what it took, if only for a moment. Along the southeastern coast of India, the ancient port has long held a tantalizing legend. Local Tamil tradition spoke of the 7 pagodas, a magnificent group of shore temples so splendid they angered the gods. As the story goes, all but one were consumed by the sea in a great flood, leaving the single, stunning shore temple we see today as a lonely sentinel. For generations, this was considered a beautiful metaphor, a poetic explanation for the grandeur of the surviving temple. Then, on a December morning in 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami struck. As the massive wave first receded, pulling the ocean back hundreds of meters in a terrifying prelude to the surge, it did something extraordinary. For a few brief minutes, it laid bare the seabed just offshore. And there, locals and tourists alike stared in awe at the shapes revealed in the wet sand, the outlines of stone walls, rows of large blocks, and the distinct foundations of structures. The legend, in a single, devastating moment, had revealed itself as history. The receding waters of that modern catastrophe had inadvertently pointed archaeologists to an ancient one. Systematic underwater surveys followed, led by teams from the Archaeological Survey of India and the National Institute of Oceanography. What they found confirmed the oral histories. Scattered on the seabed were the remains of a substantial complex, fallen walls made of large stone blocks, intricately carved pillars, and the likely bases of shrine platforms. These were not random stones, but the clear architectural fingerprints of a major temple complex, contemporaneous with the glorious dynasty monuments that still stand on the shore. Historians note that was a thriving port between the 7th and 9th centuries, a center of art, commerce, and spiritual life. The submerged structures are almost certainly part of that same flourishing world, a world that extended into the sea. The significance of this discovery is layered. First, it is a powerful testament to the enduring truth that can be carried within oral tradition. For over 1,000 years, the story of the 7 pagodas was kept alive, a cultural memory of a real event that became encoded in myth. It guided researchers to look in the right place, proving that folklore is often not mere fiction, but history filtered through generations. Second, it forges a profound and sobering link between past and present cataclysms along the same volatile coastline. The geological forces that likely caused the submergence of the original temples, whether through a sudden seismic event or a slower process of coastal erosion and subsidence, are the very same forces that unleashed the modern tsunami. The ocean here holds a long memory of upheaval. This site stands as a dialogue between stone and story, between the patience of archaeology and the sudden violence of nature. It reminds us that our coastlines are archives, and that sometimes the keys to unlocking them are not found in textbooks, but in the tales told by the sea itself. Its ambition was carved from the coastline itself. On the shores of ancient, King Herod the Great sought to create a port that would announce his loyalty and vision to Rome, a gateway that could rival even Alexandria. This was Caesarea, and its harbor was a declaration in stone and hydraulic concrete. Roman engineers, facing a coastline with no natural bay, performed what seemed like an act of sheer will. They constructed two immense breakwaters, one stretching over 200 meters into the open Mediterranean. But the true marvel was the material they used. They fashioned a revolutionary type of underwater concrete, mixing lime and a volcanic ash called pozzolana that allowed it to cure and harden even when submerged. This innovation enabled them to build directly into the sea, creating deep water quays, warehouses, and protective walls where none could naturally exist. For a time, it worked brilliantly. Caesarea became the administrative capital of Roman, a bustling nexus where grain, spices, and ideas flowed between Rome and its eastern holdings. The harbor's lighthouse, named the after Herod's son, guided ships safely to a dockyard that was a masterpiece of logistical planning. Yet the very elements the engineers would orchestrate the harbor's slow demise. The region sits along a seismically active fault line. Over the centuries, a series of powerful earthquakes shook the coast, weakening the monumental breakwaters. Tsunamis triggered by those same quakes delivered catastrophic blows, scattering the giant stone blocks like toys. And always, there was the relentless, grinding force of coastal erosion, the daily assault of waves that patiently dismantled what the tremors had loosened. By the early medieval period, was no longer a functioning port, but a treacherous reef of submerged ruins. Modern underwater archaeology has meticulously mapped this graveyard of ambition. Teams led by institutions like the University of Haifa have swum over the sunken foundations, tracing the outline of the colossal breakwaters now lying in broken segments on the seabed. They have documented fallen columns of imported marble and granite, toppled from grand buildings that once lined the harbor. The silt has preserved a museum of daily commerce, countless amphorae that carried wine and oil, anchors lost in storms, and coins that slipped from a merchant's hand. Each object a silent witness to the vibrant life that once pulsed here. Caesarea stands as a profound duality. It represents the absolute pinnacle of ancient engineering, a place where human ingenuity literally reshaped the sea to serve an empire's needs. Yet its ruins also confess a fundamental vulnerability. They are a lesson in the long arc of geological time, where even the mightiest human constructions are temporary guests upon a dynamic and powerful planet. The harbor sought to conquer the sea, but in the end, the sea, with its patient waves and sudden tremors, reclaimed its domain. This dialogue between creation and reclamation echoes across the globe, even in the most unexpected places, where a different kind of water holds a secret not of empire, but of a kingdom's spiritual heart. The sea that claimed Herod's grand harbor also whispers a quieter story along the sun-drenched coast of Crete. Here, in the shallow, turquoise embrace of Baiae, the ancient Dorian city of invites a different kind of discovery. You do not need deep diving gear or remote submersibles to visit this ruin, just a mask and snorkel. The experience is disarmingly simple. You swim from the modern shore and within moments, the past rises to meet you. Ghostly lines of stone foundations emerge from the sandy bottom, the outlines of homes and public buildings now home to schools of silvery fish. Most striking of all is a paved ancient street, its flat stones clearly visible as it marches straight from the dry land and then vanishes into the deeper blue, a literal road to nowhere, or perhaps to a memory. This is not a site lost to the abyss. It is a city in the process of being gently reclaimed, lying in water so clear and shallow that history feels within arm's reach. The cause here is almost certainly the relentless geological heartbeat of the Mediterranean tectonic subsidence. The land beneath has slowly sunk over centuries, allowing the salty waters of the bay to seep into its streets and squares. This slow-motion drowning preserved the city's plan in an astonishingly legible way, offering a street-level map of a classical Greek settlement. Was no backwater. It was a significant and independent city-state, minting its own coins and controlling important local trade. Its most famous relic is a testament to this political savvy, a treaty of alliance inscribed directly into a stone wall, a permanent contract with its powerful neighbor, the city of. The profound irony is that this wall, meant to solidify a lasting peace for all to see, now stands submerged, its words readable only to divers and the fish that dart past its letters. This transforms a snorkeling trip into a direct encounter with ancient diplomacy, a tactile link to the pragmatic concerns of governance and survival. The accessibility of is its greatest teaching tool. It democratizes underwater archaeology, making the phenomenon of coastal submergence immediately tangible to anyone willing to wade in. It blurs the line completely between recreational exploration and historical discovery, creating a powerful, personal connection. You are not just learning about a sunken city, you are floating over its courtyards, following its main thoroughfare, and witnessing the slow-motion dialogue between human construction and planetary movement. It is a reminder that these stories are not confined to remote, deep-water sites. They are sometimes waiting just offshore, in the dappled light of a calm bay, where the past is preserved not in darkness, but in the brilliant, sunlit clarity of the sea. The clarity of a Cretan bay gives way to the deep, emerald stillness of an artificial lake in China. Here lies a city that did not fall to the sea or a shifting coast, but was surrendered to fresh water by human design. This is the Lion City, a majestic urban center with roots stretching back over 1,400 years. Its towers, arches, and grand gates once stood proudly in Zhejiang province, a testament to Ming and Qing dynasty craftsmanship and urban planning. Then, in 1959, a new nation's need for electricity and flood control demanded a sacrifice. The valley was, and the rising waters of the newly formed lake slowly, silently, enveloped the city. Unlike the ruins claimed by nature's patient hand, the Lion City was not abandoned to decay, it was entombed. This deliberate flooding created one of the world's most astonishing underwater time capsules. The cold, dark, devoid of the corrosive salt and strong currents found in the ocean, acted as a perfect preservative. Without sunlight, wind, or rain to weather them, the city's exquisite stone carvings remain in a state of suspended animation. Divers descending into this silent realm report a scene of surreal beauty. They glide past ornate archways where stone lions still stand guard. Their lights illuminate walls covered in intricate bas-relief sculptures of dragons and phoenixes, their details as sharp as the day the last artisan put down his tools. Wooden beams and staircases, structures that would have crumbled to dust centuries ago on land, remain eerily intact. This is not a ruin, it is a city in hibernation. For experts in underwater cultural heritage, presents a unique and poignant paradox. It is both a tragedy of loss and a miracle of preservation. The site offers an unparalleled, three-dimensional snapshot of late imperial Chinese architecture and urban design, frozen at a specific moment in the mid-20th century. Archaeologists can study building techniques, spatial organization, and artistic styles in an environment untouched by later development or pollution. Yet access is a constant challenge, requiring specialized diving operations in deep, sometimes low-visibility water. Every study is a race against the inevitable, though slow, effects of a submerged environment. The city stands as a profound monument to the difficult choices of modernization. Its silent streets compel us to reflect on the trade-offs between preserving the past and powering the present, between cultural memory and collective need. The Lion City does not whisper of geological forces, but of human calculus, a deliberate decision that exchanged a living place for a reservoir, transforming a center of culture into a submerged museum. It asks us a quiet, enduring question. What do we choose to keep, and what must we let go? In the relentless flow of progress, a single stone can rewrite a timeline. In the deep, dark waters of the Strait of Sicily, a discovery so simple and so profound has forced a complete rethinking of early human ingenuity. Resting on the bank, a submerged plateau that was once a dry island during the last ice age, lies a colossal stone block. It weighs over 12 tons, and it is broken cleanly in two. At first glance, it might be mistaken for a natural feature, but a closer inspection reveals the unmistakable signature of human hands. The monolith is carefully shaped and drilled through with three regular, cylindrical holes of identical diameter. This was not an accident of geology, it was a project. Researchers from the National Institute of Oceanography and Experimental Geophysics in Italy, who discovered the block, date the site to over 9,000 years ago. This places its creation squarely in the Mesolithic era, a time when our ancestors are often pictured as simple hunter-gatherers, not as architects of monumental stoneworks in the middle of a channel. The immediate and compelling question is, what was it for? The monolith was found in relatively shallow water, but during its time, it would have stood on a coastline, a prominent feature on an island that was a vital waypoint between Sicily and North Africa. One theory suggests it could have served as a primitive lighthouse or a navigational marker, its imposing silhouette a guide for early mariners paddling across the channel. Another idea points to the holes, which could have been used to secure ropes or moorings, perhaps as part of an ambitious fish trap system that capitalized on local currents. Or it might have held a deeper, ceremonial purpose, a focal point for a community that understood this island as a central place in their world. The true function may remain elusive, but the implication is crystal clear. This solitary, broken stone is a beacon from a lost landscape. It testifies to a human presence on a landmass that vanished beneath rising post-glacial seas. It pushes evidence of sophisticated maritime engineering and communal construction in the Mediterranean back by thousands of years, suggesting that the peoples of this region were shaping their coastal environment with ambition and coordination far earlier than our textbooks ever assumed. This monolith does not just sit on the seabed, it stands as a silent challenge to our historical timeline, a massive question mark carved in stone. The monolith in the Sicilian Channel speaks of a world lost to time, but on a remote Pacific island, a different stone city tells a story of a world we stand to lose right now. Rising from the emerald lagoon of lies the Venice of the Pacific, the spectacular ruins of Nan. This is not a site fully claimed by the sea, not yet, but it stands as a living, breathing example of a coastal heritage in the active process of being reclaimed. Built between 800 and 900 years ago, Nan is an astonishing feat of engineering. Its builders moved colossal basalt logs, some weighing many tons, across the water to construct a network of 92 artificial islets. These stone platforms, crisscrossed by tidal canals, served as the ceremonial and political heart of the dynasty, a place of immense spiritual power. To stand among its silent, moss-covered walls is to feel the ambition of a civilization that mastered its lagoon environment completely. Yet today, that mastery is being undone. The same waters that provided transport and defense for the ancient city are now its greatest threat. Experts in Pacific archaeology and climate science point to a dual assault. Rising sea levels, driven by our warming planet, are causing increased tidal inundation and storm surges that erode the foundational stones. Simultaneously, the changing salinity and sedimentation patterns are encouraging the aggressive overgrowth of mangroves, whose powerful roots slowly but relentlessly pry apart the ancient basalt masonry. This is not a slow geological process measured in. It is a contemporary crisis unfolding within a human lifetime. The stones of Nan are a critical bridge in our understanding. They connect the ancient submergence events we have explored, which were driven by natural planetary cycles, to the human-accelerated changes reshaping our world today. This site transforms the concept of a submerged ruin from a historical fact into a pressing contemporary concern. Archaeologists working here are not just uncovering the past, they are in a race against time to document and stabilize a priceless heritage before it slips beneath the waves for good. The silent, soaking stones of this Pacific Venice ask us a direct and urgent question. Which coastal wonders of our own era will become the sunken mysteries for future generations to ponder? Rome's insatiable appetite demanded a harbor to match its ambition. While Ostia served as its initial port, the silting Tiber River and the city's colossal grain imports soon overwhelmed its capacity. The solution was a staggering feat of engineering carved directly from the coastline, the imperial harbor of. Commissioned by Emperor Claudius and later magnificently expanded by Trajan, this was not a simple dock, but a vast, artificial maritime city designed to be the uncontested heart of the Roman world's supply chain. The scale was almost incomprehensible. Claudius's original harbor featured a massive outer basin protected by curving breakwaters, with a legendary lighthouse said to rival the one at Alexandria. But the true masterpiece was Trajan's addition, a perfect hexagonal inner basin, a geometric wonder spanning over 32 hectares, connected to the outer harbor and the Tiber by a network of canals. This hexagonal port was lined with continuous wharves and warehouses, where ships from across the Mediterranean would unload Egyptian grain, Spanish olive oil, African wild animals, and exotic spices from the east. All destined for the stomachs and spectacles of Rome. To stand at its edge in its prime would have meant witnessing the relentless pulse of an empire, a symphony of creaking ships, shouting stevedores, and the endless flow of goods that fueled a civilization. Yet today, much of this engineering marvel lies silent and partly submerged in the wetlands near modern airport. The story of its decline is a slow, inevitable drama of geography. Was built in a constant and ultimately losing battle against silt. The very Tiber River that provided its connection to Rome also carried a relentless cargo of sediment downstream, steadily choking the harbor basins and canals. Despite armies of workers and ingenious dredging techniques, the siltation was a foe that could never be permanently defeated. As the harbor became shallower and harder to navigate, its commercial lifeblood slowly ebbed away. Compounding this was the local subsidence of the coastal plain and the gradual rise of sea level, which allowed water to reclaim the land. The complex was gradually abandoned, its grand basins transforming into malarial marshes, its stone wharves sinking into the soft, waterlogged earth. Underwater archaeology here reveals a landscape in mid-surrender. Researchers mapping the submerged sections can trace the ghostly outlines of the hexagonal basin's edges, now lying beneath a few meters of water. They find the submerged foundations of warehouses and the stone pilings that once supported mighty cranes. The silt that doomed the harbor also preserved a frozen moment, amphorae still stacked, as if waiting for a ship that never returned. The ruin teaches a humbling lesson about of even the greatest human enterprises. It illustrates that no infrastructure, no matter how brilliantly conceived or massively built, is eternal. It speaks of a constant negotiation with the natural world, a battle against rivers that silt and seas that rise, a battle that even Rome, for all its power, could only delay, not win. This colossal harbor, born from imperial will, now rests as a monument to the patient, reclaiming power of water and earth, a reminder that every vital artery of civilization has a written not in stone. But in the shifting balance between land and sea, the slow silting of a Roman harbor feels like a world away from the sudden, vertical plunge into darkness found on the peninsula. Here, the story of submergence is not about coastlines retreating, but about the earth itself opening up to create sacred portals. These are the breathtaking natural sinkholes formed over, as acidic rainwater dissolved the region's soft limestone bedrock, causing the sealing of vast underground rivers to collapse. To the ancient Maya, these were not mere geological features. They were the mouths of the watery underworld, gateways to the realm of the gods. This transforms our search from lost cities on the coast to intentionally curated offerings placed directly into the deep, still waters of the earth. Perhaps the most famous of these is the sacred At. Gazing into its circular, green expanse today, it is a place of profound and chilling beauty. The walls drop sheer into darkness, with tree roots reaching down like desperate fingers toward the water far below. For the Maya, this was a focal point of pilgrimage and profound ritual. Archaeological dredging and modern diving expeditions have revealed this contents, a collection that reads as an inventory of devotion and fear. Divers have recovered exquisite artifacts of jade, intricately carved ceremonial objects, beads of gold and copper, and countless pieces of pottery, all cast into the depths as offerings to the rain god. Alongside these treasures, researchers have also documented the remains of individuals, a practice that speaks to the most solemn dimensions of Maya spiritual belief. These findings are approached with immense respect by archaeologists, who see them not as morbid curiosities, but as sacred communications. Each object and each individual represents a profound transaction between the human and divine worlds, a plea for rain, for fertility, or for favor, sent directly into the realm of the gods. They expand our very definition of a submerged ruin. They are not the accidental drowning of a settlement, but a deliberate, ritual deposition into a permanent aquatic repository. The water here is not an agent of destruction, but a sacred preservative, a dark, cool vault that protected these fragile offerings for centuries. When a diver today illuminates a jade pectoral resting on a ledge in the silent darkness, They are not discovering a lost item, they are retrieving a prayer. This makes the underwater cave systems of some of the world's most poignant museums, curated not by human curators, but by faith and geology. They remind us that our relationship with water is not solely about survival or commerce. It is also deeply woven with the spiritual. A place where cultures have long sought to connect with forces greater than themselves by surrendering their most precious possessions to the depths. The profound silence of a Maya is a chosen one, a sacred quiet. But the Gulf of Thailand holds a different kind of silence, one punctuated by questions in stone. Scattered across the seabed here, in waters up to 20 meters deep, lie hundreds of large, meticulously carved stone jars. They are eerily familiar to archaeologists, bearing a striking resemblance to the famous and equally mysterious jars of the Plain of Jars in Laos, thousands of kilometers inland. Yet here they are, resting on a submerged landscape, a ghostly fleet of purpose-built containers, whose original contents and creators have been washed away by time and tide. Each jar is a substantial artifact, some standing over 1.5 meters tall, hewn from granite or sandstone with a clear, consistent technique. Their presence so far from their inland cousins and beneath the sea is a riddle that rewrites maps of ancient Southeast Asia. What were they for? On land, theories for the Laotian jars range from funerary practices, where they might have held the remains of individuals, to giant storage vessels for rice, wine, or rainwater. The underwater jars invite the same range of possibilities. Were they part of a coastal burial tradition, placed on dry land that later sank? Could they have been used for storing trade goods at a now-lost port site? Or did they serve a ritual purpose for a maritime community, anchoring ceremonies to a specific point along a vanished shore? Dating these submerged jars is a complex challenge, but initial assessments suggest they could be 2,000 years old or more. This timeline is the key to the mystery. It means these jars were crafted and placed when sea levels were lower, when this part of the Gulf of Thailand was not a gulf at all, but an exposed extension of the continent. A coastal plain likely dotted with settlements and crisscrossed by pathways. Their discovery strongly implies the existence of a previously unknown maritime culture, or at the very least, a vast trade network that connected inland megalithic traditions with coastal communities. Experts carefully ponder the mechanism of their submergence. Was it the same slow, global rise in sea level that claimed so many other sites, gradually turning a jar-studded plain into a shallow seabed over centuries? Or could a sudden, catastrophic event, like a major tsunami or a localized land subsidence from an earthquake, have abruptly plunged this jar field into the sea? The answer remains hidden in the sediments surrounding them. This find does more than add another location to our list. It dramatically underscores a fundamental truth in underwater archaeology. The continental shelves of our world, those gently sloping plains now covered by relatively shallow seas, were the original coastlines and homelands for countless generations. The Gulf of Thailand's stone jars are a powerful reminder that this drowned world is not empty. It is an unexplored frontier, a lost continent in its own right, holding the cultural footprints of societies we have yet to name. Every enigmatic jar on that is a message in a bottle from a dry land that vanished, waiting for us to understand its address. The silent jars of the Gulf of Thailand reveal a continent's lost coast, but our journey now turns inland, to a world of water governed not by tides, but by rain and river. Deep within the Amazon basin, a different kind of submergence story unfolds, one written in the seasonal pulse of the Earth's greatest rainforest. For generations, The dominant narrative painted this immense green expanse as a pristine wilderness, a place where only small, nomadic tribes could survive. The idea of large, complex civilizations here seemed impossible, a story the jungle itself was thought to have swallowed whole. But the rivers and the rain have been keeping a secret, one that modern technology is only now allowing us to read. The key to unlocking it lies not with sonar in the sea, but with lasers in the sky. Archaeologists have begun using a revolutionary tool called LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Imagine a plane flying over the dense canopy, firing millions of laser pulses downward. These pulses penetrate the smallest gaps in the leaves, bounce off the ground below, and return to the sensor. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, scientists can digitally strip away the vegetation, revealing the shape of the earth beneath with astonishing clarity. What they have found is rewriting history. Beneath that seemingly impenetrable green blanket, LiDAR has revealed a hidden geography of staggering scale and sophistication. Vast geometric earthworks emerge from the data, precise circles, squares, and octagons formed from ditches and banks. Long, straight causeways stretch for kilometers, connecting sites across what must have been a managed landscape. These are not natural formations. They are the fingerprints of large-scale, organized societies that once thrived here. This discovery forces us to completely reimagine the ancient Amazon. We are not looking at a few isolated villages, but at a networked region, a civilization built in harmony with and in defiance of a water-dominated world. The people here were master hydraulic engineers. They built on raised mounds to survive the annual floods, created complex fish farming systems, and likely managed the very soils of the forest to support agriculture on a scale we never suspected. Their monuments were not pyramids of stone, but earthworks of meaning, integrated into a living, breathing system. So where did this civilization go, and why was it lost to history? This is where the concept of a fluvial or river-based submergence becomes so powerful. The Amazon is not a static place. Its rivers are alive, constantly shifting their courses over centuries. Seasonal flooding can bury sites under layers of silt, and the relentless growth of the rainforest can reclaim a cleared area in a matter of years. The very hydrological system that sustained these societies, the network of rivers and streams that connected their earthworks and roads, has itself changed over the last 500 years. When European contact brought new illnesses, the population collapsed. Without communities to maintain them, the causeways were swallowed by roots, the geometric plazas were flooded and filled with sediment, and the managed forest quickly returned to its wild state. The civilization was not drowned by a rising ocean, but was gradually, utterly reclaimed by the dynamic forces of river and rainforest it had so skillfully navigated. This changes the narrative from one of an empty wilderness to a populated, managed garden. The Amazon's past is not permanently submerged, but it is profoundly hidden, a ghost landscape of earth and intention waiting just beneath the green surface and the seasonal waters. It teaches us that sometimes, the most effective way for history to disappear is not for water to cover it, but for the land itself to breathe it back in. The hidden landscapes of the Amazon reveal how water can reclaim a civilization through growth and silt. But in the misty highlands of Scotland, water was not an obstacle to overcome. It was a foundation to build upon. Here, the lochs hold secrets of a different order, not drowned cities, but deliberately constructed island strongholds that have slipped beneath the surface. These are the crannogs, and their story is one of ingenious adaptation. From the Neolithic period through the Iron Age and into medieval times, communities across Scotland and Ireland chose to live not just near the water, but directly upon it. Using vast quantities of timber, stone, and rubble, they built up artificial islands in the locks, creating circular platforms that could support a single-family dwelling or an entire small village. The motivation was clear: defense. Surrounded by water, a crannog was a natural fortress, easily defended with a simple drawbridge or removable walkway connecting it to the shore. It provided security from rival clans and wild animals, while offering immediate access to the loch's rich resources of fish and waterfowl. But today, many of these island homes are no longer islands at all. They rest fully submerged, their timber piles and stone foundations visible only from a boat or through the clear, peat-stained water. The reason for their submergence is a fascinating mix of natural change and modern intervention. In some cases, natural shifts in the local water table or long-term climatic patterns caused loch levels to slowly rise over centuries, gradually inundating the crannogs. In other instances, it was much more recent. The construction of dams and water management systems in the 18th and 19th centuries intentionally raised water levels to power mills or create reservoirs, inadvertently drowning these ancient sites. Yet this very act of drowning created an archaeological miracle. The cold, dark, low-oxygen environment of a loch is a perfect preservative, especially for organic materials that would rot away in mere decades on land. This is where crannog archaeology becomes breathtakingly intimate. Underwater excavations at sites like Crannog on Loch Tay have recovered a time capsule of everyday life in stunning detail. Archaeologists have brought up wooden bowls and plates, still bearing the knife marks from their last meal. They have found delicate textiles, woven baskets that held grain, and even a wooden butter keg with its contents, a pale, waxy substance that analysis confirmed was indeed ancient dairy fat. Preserved for over 2,500 years. The level of preservation is so exceptional that researchers can study tool marks on wood to understand ancient carpentry techniques, or analyze pollen and plant remains trapped in the sediments to reconstruct the exact environment around the loch. These finds do more than list artifacts, they reconstruct a sensory world. We can almost hear the creak of a dugout canoe pulled onto the wooden jetty, smell the peat smoke from a central hearth, and feel the texture of a woven garment. The crannogs offer a uniquely complete portrait of domestic life, community, and defense strategies in prehistoric Scotland. They showcase a brilliant solution to the challenges of the era, turning the perceived vulnerability of water into a source of strength and sustenance. Their silent, submerged state today is not a tragedy of loss, but a gift of preservation, granting us a clearer, more tangible window into the daily rhythms of our ancestors than many grander stone ruins ever could. This preservation presents a fascinating contrast to sites where wood is often devoured by shipworms and currents scatter artifacts. In the still, cold lochs, history waits in a state of suspended animation, reminding us that sometimes the most profound insights into the past are found not in the grandeur of sunken temples, but in the waterlogged remains of a simple wooden bowl, last used by hands that sought safety on an island of their own making. Faith built its sanctuaries where the land met the sea, seeking both solitude and connection. Along the rugged Black Sea coast of modern Bulgaria, the gentle slopes near towns like once hosted a different kind of community, not of traders or soldiers, but of monks and early Christians. From the 5th and 6th centuries, these quiet coves and headlands echoed with prayer and the quiet industry of monastic life. Simple stone chapels and living quarters were built close to the shore, part of a widespread network of coastal monasteries that dotted this region. places where spirituality flourished with the rhythm of the waves as a constant backdrop. These communities were nodes in a vibrant religious network, connected by boat and footpath, sharing ideas and offering refuge along a major maritime corridor of the late Roman and early Byzantine world. Their location was strategic, providing the isolation sought for contemplation, yet still accessible to pilgrims and part of the wider Christian community spreading across the empire. Today, to explore these waters is to witness a profound silence. Divers and marine archaeologists find not grand columns, but the humble foundations of these spiritual outposts now resting on the seabed. The outlines of small chapels and rectangular rooms are traced by lines of stone, walls that have tumbled but whose plans remain clear. Among the scattered rocks, the seabed is littered with the most telling artifacts of daily devotion: fragments of red clay pottery, amphorae that once held oil or wine, and pieces of liturgical lamps. Each broken shard is a quiet testament to a life of ritual and routine, a community that gathered, worked, and in this now submerged space. The force that claimed these monasteries was not a sudden invasion or an act of war, but the immense, patient movement of the earth itself. This region of the Black Sea coast is geologically active, subject to tectonic subsidence. Over centuries, a large section of the coastline here has been slowly, inexorably sinking. This meant the sea did not violently crash over these communities, but instead advanced with a stealth that spanned generations. A monk in the 6th century might have noticed the shoreline, creeping a little closer to the orchard over his lifetime. His successor, a century later, may have had to abandon the lower chapel as storm surges began to flood its floor. Eventually, the decision would have been made to retreat, to move the community inland, leaving the original stones to the advancing tide. Experts studying these sites note how this slow-motion disaster represents more than just the loss of buildings. It marks the physical erasure of a spiritual geography. These submerged monasteries were not just buildings. They were centers of learning, charity, and community cohesion for the scattered coastal population. Their loss disrupted a network, forcing a relocation of religious life and potentially severing local communities from a vital anchor of their social and spiritual identity. The drowned monasteries of the Black Sea offer a poignant lesson in the vulnerability of human institutions to planetary forces. They show us that environmental change can quietly dismantle the very frameworks of faith and community, not through persecution, but through a gradual, inescapable reclamation. The stones on the seabed are a silent sermon on impermanence, reminding us that the landscapes which shape our deepest beliefs are themselves subject to the slow breath of the earth. The silent stones of faith give way to a different kind of altar, one built from the bones of giants. Far from the Black Sea, in the warm, tannin-stained waters of Florida's river, lies a sinkhole that has rewritten the first chapter of human history in the Americas. This is the Page site, a time capsule sealed in a submerged spring. Here, over 14,500 years ago, Paleo-Indians encountered a world we can scarcely picture. They walked along spring-fed rivers and lush watering holes, a landscape that today is nothing but open ocean over the continental shelf. In this lost coastal paradise, they hunted creatures of legend. Divers working in the site's challenging, dark waters have recovered something astonishing: the bones of a mastodon, a relative of the woolly mammoth, lying alongside unmistakable stone tools. The evidence is etched into the bones themselves, cut marks that tell a clear story of butchering. This is not a random collection. It is a prehistoric campsite, a place where humans successfully hunted and processed megafauna on land that would one day drown. Marine described the experience of diving here as a journey into a ghost world. They illuminate, with their lights, the ancient banks of a river that flowed when sea levels were nearly 100 meters lower. They map the layers of sediment that hold the secrets of a climate in transition, from the dry grip of the last ice age to a warmer, wetter epoch. Each artifact pulled from the silt, a bifacial knife, a scraping tool, is a data point in a radical new map. The significance of Page cannot be overstated. For decades, the dominant theory held that humans first entered the Americas around 13,000 years ago, crossing a land bridge from Asia. This site, along with a handful of others, pushes that timeline back by over 1,000 years. It proves that humans were not only present, but were thriving along the southeastern coast, exploiting rich ecosystems that have since vanished beneath the Gulf of Mexico. These submerged middens, ancient refuse piles of shell and bone, and butchery sites are the archives of a lost coastal civilization. They map a paradise of springs, rivers teeming with fish, and forests roaming with massive prey. The flooding of this shelf was not an instantaneous event, but a slow migration of the coastline over, a relentless push that forced these earliest explorers to continually adapt, to follow the retreating animals and sources inland. What we see today as featureless blue water was once a verdant, inhabited corridor, the very highway for the peopling of a continent. These dark river dives do more than push back a date. They restore a homeland to the very first Americans, a world now remembered only in the silent, waterlogged evidence they left behind. The luxury of was not an isolated marvel, but part of a grander design. The entire sweep of the Gulf of Naples coastline was, in its Roman heyday, a continuous ribbon of opulence. Beyond the famous resort, the submerged remains of countless maritime villas whisper of a society that built its dream homes directly at the water's edge. Today, you can explore this legacy at places like the archaeological park, where the ruins of a first-century villa are woven into the very fabric of a small island. Its structures dipping below the waves in a haunting embrace. These were not simple beach houses. They were masterpieces of leisure architecture, designed to showcase wealth and harness the stunning beauty of the bay. The elite Romans who owned them competed to create the most impressive seaside retreats. They constructed elaborate, monumental fountain grottos, adorned with statues and mosaics that celebrated water deities. They built sophisticated, intricate fish ponds where they could cultivate exotic species for both dining and display. Private bath complexes, fed by the region's natural thermal springs, offered the ultimate in relaxation, with panoramic views of the sea. Every element was engineered to blur the line between the cultivated luxury of the villa and the wild beauty of the Mediterranean. Now, that boundary has been erased in a different way. Where Roman aristocrats once strolled along colonnaded walkways, schools of damselfish now dart through the shadows of fallen columns. An octopus might make its home in what was once a cistern. The intricate geometric patterns of a mosaic floor are now framed by slow-growing sea fans and patches of bright algae. This transformation from a human to a marine domain is the work of a powerful, patient geological force. The entire region sits on a volcanic fault line, subject to a process called. This term describes the gradual uplift or subsidence of the Earth's crust due to the movement of magma and hydrothermal fluids far below the surface. In the Gulf of Naples, this means the coastline is not static. Over centuries, large sections can slowly sink, while others may rise. It is this slow, intermittent subsidence that has allowed the sea to claim these lavish properties, not in a single catastrophic event, but in a series of long, quiet surrenders. Collectively, these sunken villas form an extensive underwater museum of Roman domestic life. They show us the architectural trends, the engineering solutions for coastal living, and the sheer scale of investment in leisure by the empire's wealthiest citizens. Each submerged dining room, each waterlogged garden, tells a story of a culture that sought to dominate its environment, to sculpt the very coast for its pleasure. The silent lesson of these stones is one of profound negotiation. The Romans built in defiance of the sea's power, yet in the end, it is the restless earth beneath them, breathing in and out over, that determined the final layout of their luxury coastline. This creates a unique archaeological landscape, where the past is not buried under later cities, but preserved in a serene, liquid gallery, inviting us to swim through the living rooms of a vanished world. The Roman dream of a tamed coastline stands in stark contrast to a story where the sea was deliberately unleashed as a weapon. In the misty estuary of the Scheldt River, where modern Belgium meets the Netherlands, lies a vast and haunting tidal marsh known as the Drowned Land of. This is not a ruin claimed by geological patience, but one born from a single, desperate decision in a time of war. Until the late 16th century, was a prosperous and fortified town, its wealth built on fertile farmland and strategic position. Its people lived securely behind a network of dikes, believing they had mastered the waters. Then came the 80 Years' War, the Dutch revolt against Spanish rule. In 1584, with Spanish forces advancing, the Dutch defenders faced an impossible choice. To flood the land and halt the enemy's progress, they made the catastrophic decision to breach the protective dikes. The sea did not creep in, it roared. The inundation was swift and devastating, swallowing the town, its surrounding villages, and thousands of hectares of rich pasture. Vanished in a matter of hours, a community sacrificed to the tactics of war. For generations after, a poignant local legend persisted, that on days of the lowest tides, the ghostly spires of the drowned churches could still be seen piercing the surface of the mudflats. A spectral reminder of the world below. While the spires may be folklore, the land itself has never forgotten. The area is now one of Europe's largest salt marshes, a wild and inaccessible place where the tides sculpt the mud into a new landscape every day. And on occasion, that shifting mud gives up its secrets. Historians and mudflat hikers have recovered eerie artifacts that speak to the suddenness of the loss: medieval pottery, bricks from vanished homes, and even human footprints fossilized in the clay. Captured in a final, frantic moment of flight, each find is a somber echo from a community erased not by a rising ocean, but by human hands. The story of reframes our understanding of a submerged ruin. It demonstrates that the loss of a place to the sea is not always an act of nature or an accident of time. It can be a deliberate, devastating strategy, a calculated act of geographical warfare where the environment itself is turned into a weapon. The Drowned Land stands as a lasting monument to the brutal choices of conflict, a reminder that the maps we inherit are often shaped as much by human decisions as by planetary forces, and that some coastlines bear the scars of history written in and sacrifice. The story of a land deliberately drowned for war finds an echo in a far older, far greater inundation, one that may have shaped the very foundations of myth. Beneath the warm, shallow waters of the Persian Gulf lies a ghost landscape on a continental scale. Today it is a marine basin, but for most of human history it was something else entirely, a vast, fertile river valley scientists call the Gulf Oasis. During the peak of the last ice age, with so much of the world's water locked in glaciers, global sea levels were over 100 meters lower. What is now seabed was then a broad, low-lying plain, crisscrossed by rivers flowing from the Tigris and Euphrates down to a distant coastline far to the south. This exposed land was not a desert, but a well-watered refuge, a green corridor of savannas, marshes, and springs, teeming with wildlife. For early human populations migrating out of Africa, this oasis would have been an irresistible haven, a place to settle and thrive for thousands of years. The evidence for this lost world is not in drowned buildings, but in something more fundamental: stone. Across the seabed of the Persian Gulf, fishermen and researchers have hauled up ancient stone tools, finely worked hand axes and scrapers. Even more telling are the discoveries of what appear to be submerged hearth sites, patches of burned rock and charcoal that mark where people once made fires, cooked meals, and gathered along vanished riverbanks. These lithic clues, scattered on the ocean floor, suggest a sustained human presence dating back more than 8,000 years, a population living on land that simply does not exist today. Paleoclimatologists who study ancient climates can outline the cataclysm that ended this world. As the ice age waned, the glaciers melted, and the oceans began their great rise. The basin of the Persian Gulf is very shallow and gently sloping. When the rising Indian Ocean finally topped the southern sill, the water would not have crept in slowly. It would have rushed across the flat plain in a geologically rapid surge. The filling of the entire Gulf may have occurred over just a few centuries, a blink of an eye in planetary terms. For the communities living there, it would have been a relentless, terrifying reality. The coastline would have advanced by kilometers in a single lifetime, swallowing hunting grounds, sources, and sacred sites. Generation after generation would have been forced into a desperate, continual retreat, watching their entire world vanish beneath the waves. This landscape-scale loss is so profound it resonates in our oldest stories. Many scholars see a possible memory of this event etched into the world's first great epic, the Mesopotamian tale of Gilgamesh. Within that ancient poem lies a story of a great flood, divinely sent, that covered the whole world. The hero is warned by a god to build a boat to save his family and the seeds of all living things. After the waters subside, his boat comes to rest on a mountain, and he releases a dove and a raven to find land. The parallels to later flood narratives are striking, but the setting is key. It is a story born in Mesopotamia, the very region whose people would have received the refugees from the drowned Gulf oasis. Could this epic be a cultural memory, passed down for thousands of years, of that rapid, traumatic flooding of a fertile homeland? The theory is compelling because it connects geological fact with mythological truth. The Gulf oasis is perhaps the ultimate submerged ruin, not a city, but an entire potential cradle of early human society. Its loss represents one of the most dramatic and rapid changes of coastline our species has ever witnessed. Those stone tools on the seabed are more than artifacts. They are anchors for a lost chapter of the human journey, a reminder that some of our deepest myths may not be pure invention, but the echo of a real, drowning world, a story written in water and remembered in stone. Their stone circles and passage tombs stand as timeless monuments on the green hills of Ireland and Britain. But the sacred landscape of the Neolithic farmers did not end at the modern shoreline. In the cold, green waters of the Irish Sea, another layer of their world lies in silent repose. Scattered across the seabed, from the coasts of Wales to the shores of the Isle of Man, marine surveys have revealed something profound: the unmistakable forms of megalithic cairns and tombs. These are not natural rock piles, but carefully constructed mounds of stone, human sentinels placed thousands of years ago to mark the final resting places of individuals, now guarding their secrets beneath the waves. To stand on a windswept headland and look out to sea is to gaze upon a modern frontier. But for those early communities, that same vista was a continuation of their known world. A low-lying coastal plain where they lived, farmed, and honored their ancestors. The discovery of these submerged structures forces a dramatic reimagining of their territory. We must picture a geography where the Irish Sea was not a formidable barrier, but a central valley, a region of connected hills and dry land that linked populations. The ceremonial centers we know today, like in Ireland, were not isolated peaks of culture, but part of a vast, integrated ritual network that sprawled across a now-drowned continent. Finding a single carved stone or a collapsed burial chamber on the is an archaeological revelation. It tells us that the spiritual map of these people was painted on a much larger canvas than we ever suspected. Their processions and rituals may have followed paths that now lie under 40 meters of seawater. Their understanding of territory, of belonging, was anchored to landmarks and ancestral sites that have vanished from human memory, preserved only in the sediment scans of marine geologists. The mechanism of their loss is the same patient, global story we have traced across the world, but with a local signature. As the colossal weight of the last ice sheets lifted from northern Britain, the land began a complex dance of rebound and adjustment. While Scotland rose, the basin of the Irish Sea experienced a relative sinking, a tilting of the continental shelf. Combined with the relentless meltwater pouring in from the glaciers, this caused the sea to advance across the low plains that once connected islands into a single, contiguous landmass. The drowning was not swift, but it was inexorable, transforming a lived-in ceremonial landscape into a submerged spiritual archive over centuries. For archaeologists, each identified cairn is a puzzle piece in a grander picture. It challenges the assumption that all major Neolithic sites are found on present-day dry land. It suggests that some of the most significant ritual centers for these communities may now be completely inaccessible, lost to the deepest parts of the sea channel. These silent stone mounds do more than mark a grave. They mark a profound loss of cultural context. They represent the drowning of an entire dimension of belief, a sacred geography that connected the living to their past in places we can no longer walk. Today, these sites are known only through remote sensing technology or the careful eyes of scientific divers, who visit them as visitors to a forgotten country. They remind us that the coastlines we navigate are not permanent borders, but recent lines on a map, and that the deepest connections a culture has to its land can, in time, become secrets entrusted solely to the sea. The silent stones of the past now hold a conversation with our own crowded coastlines. Our final stop is not a ruin yet, but a portrait of what may become one. The 30th submerged site on our list does not lie on the seabed, but on maps of future projections drawn by climate scientists. These are the cities of our present, from Venice and Miami to Bangkok and Alexandria, each standing as a potential archaeological site for a civilization yet to come. The forces that claimed ancient ports are no longer just the patient rhythms of a post-Ice Age planet. They are accelerated by our own hands. Experts in coastal resilience point to a sobering parallel: the same processes of subsidence and sea level rise that drowned or are actively at work today, but on a scale and at a speed that threatens billions. In Venice, the is not a novelty but a symptom, where the weight of the city and the pumping of groundwater compound the rising Adriatic. In Miami, porous limestone bedrock means rising seas cannot be held back by walls alone. They will seep upward from below, turning foundations to sponge. The projections are not science fiction, they are physics. A meter of sea level rise, a possibility within this century, redefines the map. It is not just about flooded streets, but about the corrosion of irreplaceable infrastructure, the loss of electrical grids that power our lives, and the inundation of the very neighborhoods that define a city's soul. What future divers might one day explore the drowned Art Deco districts of South Beach, or swim through the silent, algae-draped halls of the Library of Alexandria's modern successor? The potential loss is not merely structural, it is cultural, severing living communities from their history and geography in a single, protracted crisis. This shifts our entire journey from a study of the past to a warning for the present. The ancient ruins we have explored are messages in a bottle, proving that coastlines are transient and human settlements are guests upon them. Their stories of adaptation and retreat are case studies for our own time. The difference is that we possess the knowledge to see what is coming, and perhaps the capacity to choose a different path. Our modern megacities are the ruins of tomorrow, unless we decide to write a different ending. This final, hypothetical site completes the circle, transforming our curiosity about lost worlds into a profound responsibility for the one we still inhabit. The water holds our history in its silent embrace. Our journey across continents, and from the legendary stones of to the glittering, vulnerable coast of modern Miami, reveals a single, profound truth. Our coastlines are not permanent borders etched in stone. They are temporary sketches drawn in sand, constantly being redrawn by the patient hand of geological time. The 30 submerged ruins we have explored are far more than a catalog of curiosities. They are living archives, each one a chapter in the epic story of environmental change. They stand as enduring testaments to human ingenuity and resilience, showcasing how cultures from the Neolithic farmers of yam to the Roman engineers have adapted, innovated, and sometimes made the heartbreaking choice to retreat. And in their silent, stony presence, they also carry warnings, echoes of past vulnerabilities that resonate with urgent clarity in our own era of rising seas. These sunken cities teach us on multiple levels. Geologically, they map the breathing of our planet, the slow rise of post-ice age oceans, the sudden drop of earthquake-prone lands, and the gradual subsidence of unstable coasts. Culturally, they restore lost chapters, revealing trade networks like those at spiritual practices in the of the Maya, and the domestic rhythms of life in a Scottish crannog or at. Most importantly, they illuminate the fragile, dynamic relationship humanity has always shared with the water that both sustains and threatens us. This relationship is not a new challenge, it is the oldest story of coastal civilization. Today, as scientific projections outline a future of accelerating sea level rise, these ancient echoes become critically relevant. They are case studies in long-term adaptation. They show us that the question is not if coasts will change, but how we choose to respond. The past is not merely a sequence of events that happen behind us. It is also a landscape lying beneath us, a library of experience preserved on the. To understand it is to gain wisdom for the path ahead. Let this exploration inspire more than wonder. Let it foster a deeper respect for our shared, fragile heritage, both above and below the waves. And let it renew our commitment to thoughtful stewardship, to protecting the vibrant coastal communities and rich histories of today while we still can. The dialogue between land and sea continues, and we are all part of its next chapter. If these mysteries from the deep have captivated you, consider subscribing for more journeys into history's hidden layers. And we would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these submerged ruins speaks most powerfully to your imagination? Share your reflections in the comments below.